Coming up today, President Park Geun-hye is set to embark on a marathon 12-day trip to 3 African nations and France. She'll be joined by a massive business delegation. South Korea rebuffs another North Korean proposal for inter-Korean talks. It says Pyongyang has to take steps to abandon its nuclear weapons before dialogue can begin. Plus, UN Secretary-General Ban KiMoon arrives in South Korea on Wednesday as speculation mounts he could launch a bid for the presidency. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Wednesday, May 25th here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this morning, President Park Geun-hye will leave today for state visits to Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya and France. Her trip is mostly aimed at promoting Seoul's commitment to economic growth in Africa. The South Korean leader will visit Ethiopia from May 25th to the 28th, followed by stays in Uganda and Kenya until June 1st. Ethiopia is a key South Korean ally in the region and was the only African nation to dispatch ground troops to Korea to fight with the allies during the Korean War. President Park will meet with South Korean soldiers and residents in Ethiopia. She will also visit the African Union headquarters and deliver a special speech on policy initiatives for Africa, becoming the first South Korean president to do so. President Park will launch the Korea Aid Project, which is an official development assistance program for the 3 African nations offering medical, food and cultural services. Then, in Paris, from June 1st to the 4th, she will mark the 130th anniversary of South Korea's diplomatic relations with France. North Korea has sent South Korea another notice, reiterating its call for cross-border military talks. But Seoul's stance remains the same: denuclearization before dialogue. The regime's insistence the 2 Koreas hold talks comes as Pyongyang is facing mounting pressure in the form of sanctions from other countries, including its longtime ally, China. Gwon-soa reports.
The South Korean Foreign Ministry is standing firm and says there will not be any talks with North Korea unless the regime shows sincere efforts to denuclearize. A ministry spokesperson reiterated this on Tuesday in response to concerns that Seoul's strategy for dealing with the North may need some more flexibility. It's a notion that's been spreading since Seoul rejected Pyongyang's most recent proposal of military talks. Inter-Korean dialogue has been suspended since working-level talks were held last December.
If we give out any specific guidelines on denuclearization, it could be seen as a precondition. North Korea itself should know what's meant with efforts in denuclearization.
Spokesman Cho also said that recent trips by North Korean officials to countries like Cuba and Africa are seen as attempts by the regime to de-isolate itself from the rest of the world and shake off sanctions. On top of unilateral sanctions imposed by Switzerland, the EU and Russia, the North's closest ally China also seems to be ramping up pressure on the regime, as it has reportedly deported a North Korean diplomat who was residing in the country. Seoul's foreign ministry assumes the move is in line with the UN Security Council's resolution, as the official's name is believed to be on the UN's blacklist. Gwon-soa, Arirang News.
The South Korean government has confirmed that an unspecified number of North Koreans who worked at a North Korean restaurant in China have expressed their intent to defect to the South. The North Koreans are said to be awaiting a flight to South Korea in an undisclosed Southeast Asian country. Connie Kim reports.
South Korea has confirmed the latest news report that claimed a group of North Koreans working at a Chinese restaurant has defected.
It is a fact that 3 North Koreans escaped from an overseas North Korean restaurant.
Seoul's confirmation comes after local media reported Monday that 2 or 3 North Koreans escaped from a North Korean restaurant in Shanghai. The report said the defectors are women in their 20s and have been staying at an undisclosed East Asian nation since last week. However, Seoul said it cannot confirm how many or where they escaped from, considering the safety of the defectors and diplomatic relations with other nations. This marks the second group defection in less than 2 months after 13 North Koreans defected from a Chinese restaurant in Ningbo. Seoul at the time said the decision to announce the defection as a mass defection was unprecedented, considering UN sanctions on Pyongyang were in full swing. Experts say this defection may also be a result of the strongest UN sanctions on the North to date.
North Korea sanctions have been imposed since March, but I think it's too early to say if the defection will lead to overall change or the regime's collapse.
Many North Korea watchers say similar cases are likely to occur in the future, which puts the spotlight on Seoul and how it will deal with the issue. If defectors do make their way into South Korea, the focus will be on whether Seoul opts to disclose any details following the government's rare press briefing last month regarding the mass defection. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Key members of South Korea's ruling Saenuri Party have agreed to normalize operations within the feuding party. Floor leader Jung Jin-seok, former party leader Kim Moo-sung and former finance minister Choi Kyung-hwan will together recruit an interim leader who will be tasked with revamping the party until July, when a new leadership is elected at a party convention. On Tuesday, the trio discussed possible candidates and agreed the interim leader must be scouted from outside the party and must earn the approval of all members. The factional feud peaked last week when the party's attempt to establish an emergency panel and an innovation committee failed because of the internal discord. UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon arrives in South Korea, his home country, for a short trip on Wednesday. With his second and final term as UN chief ending in December, there's speculation he might run for the presidency. For more on that and his itinerary while in Korea, Park Ji-won reports.
UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon has a packed schedule lined up as soon as he touches down in Korea on Wednesday, May 25th. The UN chief is expected to arrive at Jeju International Airport at around noon, Korea time. His primary focus is to attend the Jeju Peace Forum, annual international comprehensive forum. On the first day of his trip, he will attend the forum's welcoming banquet in the evening, presided over by Korea's Unification Minister Hong Yong-pyo. On the following day, the UN chief will have a breakfast meeting with former foreign ministers. Ban himself served as Korea's foreign minister from 2004 to 2006, before he began his first term as the UN Secretary-General. Later in the morning, he will hold talks with Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-won and give a keynote speech at the opening of the Jeju Forum. In the afternoon, he will fly to Japan to attend the G7 summit. On the following day, he will depart Japan and return to Seoul in the evening. Ban will eventually get some private time on Saturday, the 28th. On this day, he is expected to meet with family and even get a health checkup. The 2016 Rotary International Seoul Convention will open Sunday at the Kintex in Ilsan, Gyeonggi-do Province, where he will deliver yet another speech. Later in the day, Ban will head to Huawei Village, a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the southeast Andong region. His last day in Korea will be spent in Gyeongju, where he will attend the 66th UNDPI NGO conference, where he will speak and also hold a press conference. Following this event, he will wrap things up and depart for the U.S. from Incheon International Airport. Ban has been tight-lipped about his plan after his UN term ends in December, but many in Korea still regard him as the country's next potential leader, and all eyes will be on his every move during this visit. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, in another indication of the rather listless economy, Korea's top state-run think tank has slashed the country's growth outlook for this year to the 2% range. It is now in line with a number of other global and local financial institutions. The question now is, will the Korean government follow suit? Our economics correspondent Hwang Ji-ae with the details.
Korea Development Institute, or KDI, expects the domestic economy to expand 2.6% this year, further stoking concerns that the country is falling into a low-growth trap.
The state think tank's latest forecast is in line with other major institutions like the OECD and the IMF that both expect Asia's fourth largest economy to grow 2.7%. The Bank of Korea projects 2.8% expansion, while some private financial institutions forecast growth will be even lower. KDI cites slowing exports prompted by slumbering global demand and a constraint in spending due to longer life expectancies as reasons for the downgrade. It also pointed to the corporate restructuring push as a major uncertainty that could further slow the economy.
From now on, the restructuring of ailing companies is a critical issue, so all macroeconomic policies should directly and indirectly support the overhaul of the firms.
The director added that related parties will have to share the burden of losses incurred in the process of restructuring, and fiscal support should be drawn up as a last resort. The institute also called for a more expansionary monetary policy as it would help buffer possible shocks stemming from the shakeup. And facing more uncertainty of massive job losses as the restructuring drive gains momentum, speculation is mounting that the government might also lower its growth forecast to the 2% range next month when it releases its economic policy for the second half of the year. Still, some experts say the government will want to hold on to its 3.1% growth projection as it acts more like a target for the economy. 황지혜, Arirang News.
Huawei Technologies has filed lawsuits against Samsung Electronics for alleged infringement of its smartphone patents. This is the first such case by the Chinese firm against the world's biggest mobile maker. The lawsuits were filed in the US and China and seek compensation for what it said was, quote, unlicensed use of fourth-generation cellular communications technology, operating systems and user interface software in Samsung phones, end quote. In a statement, the Chinese phone maker said it hopes the Korean tech giant will stop infringing its patents and get the necessary license from Huawei and work together with it to jointly drive the industry forward. The lawsuit marks an about-face for Chinese firms, which have often been on the receiving end of patent infringement disputes. The Japanese government has passed its first ever anti-hate speech law. Supporters say it will go a long way to curbing racial discrimination in the country. There are plenty of critics, though, with many saying it's merely toothless window dressing that'll do little to tackle the deep-rooted issues in Japan. EG1 reports.
The Japanese Diet passed a bill at countering hate speech during the current session that ends on June 1st on Tuesday. The lower house of Japan's national legislature passed a bill on hate speech, including what it deemed unjust discriminatory words and actions toward a person of foreign origin intended to incite exclusion from communities. A number of xenophobic rallies by nationalist groups began to take place around 2013, many targeting ethnic Koreans and urging the Japanese government to cut diplomatic ties with Korea. The two countries have a sensitive relationship stemming from Japan's crimes during its colonization of Korea and sexual enslavement of women in World War II. In 2014, UN Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination urged Japan to take appropriate measures in restricting abuses towards minorities in the country. But the country refused to establish a law on hate speech, citing freedom of expression under the nation's constitution. But with anti-racism groups and politicians battling racial discrimination, the hate speech bill was submitted by the major coalition ruling party in May 2015, before finally being passed. Some experts, however, are skeptical whether it will be effective.
The law limits the coverage to legal minorities in the country, which further discriminates against people like temporary workers. The law may prove to be ineffective as it does not yet include punishment, including fines or jail time for hate speech.
The expert added that in order to stamp out racial discrimination, the Japanese government must specify penalties for violating the law and promote its enactment. 이지원, Arirang News.
Now, Korean novelist Han Gang, who stunned the world by becoming the first ever Asian to win the prestigious Man Booker International Prize for her book The Vegetarian, has held her first press conference since returning to Seoul. Yoon Shin has the details.
Fresh off her Man Booker Prize win, Han said with a humble smile that she had not anticipated receiving such an honor.
I felt rather numb and strange when I found out I won the prize. I'm grateful for all the readers out there who sent me warm regards.
Speaking to Press in Seoul on Tuesday, the soft-spoken author said she wants The Vegetarian to be a thought-provoking read, as the book talks about inevitable pains that everyone deals with in life. Now critically acclaimed, the novel has been in high demand, locking down publishing deals in 27 countries across the globe. Another one of her novels, Human Acts, which is about a victim of solidarity and suffering who lives through a historic democratic movement in Korea, has also been published in more than 10 different countries. Like Han's books, other Korean novels have been well accepted by the global audience, including Please Look After Mom by Shin Kyung-suk, which has been published in more than 35 countries. Their success is significant because it also symbolizes the growing interest in Korean literature overseas.
Through novels like The Vegetarian and Please Look After Mom, the international community can learn not just about Korean culture itself, but also underlying cultural messages and the unique lyrical style of Korean literature.
Han's well-deserved critical and commercial success is certainly helping to open the door for future Korean authors to meet more international readers. Han says, quote, "To an open mind, there's no such thing as a literature that's too boring or too difficult to read in this world." With that in mind, along with the current momentum that's been created, collective interest in Korean novels will only grow. Ian-shin, Arirang News.
Well, those are stories we have been following on this Wednesday morning here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out the website arirang.com/news. We also have a smartphone application which you can find by just searching for Arirang TV in your app store. Have a great day. Goodbye.